Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? It's Joe here from Spain Speaks with a weekly review video with Johnny. We'll talk about some of the things that have caught our attention this week here in Spain. So let's go to the video. All right, Johnny, how are you this week?
Good, Stu. Enjoying a couple of days off for the Semana Santa.
That's
No
it.
work today. Yeah. My second
East-
Easter in Spain. Sadly, the second Easter that I haven't been able to see the parades and all the traditions that come with it.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, the pandemic has got in the way of Easter again this year, and a lot of things cancelled, especially in the more religious cities around the country. If you go down to the south of Spain, of course, they love to have those Easter parades. A few cities in the north, I think Zamora has a big Easter celebration. In Madrid, there's a little celebration, but of course, not as much as some other parts where religion is probably stronger.
Yeah, indeed. On the plus side, though, we're back with the lighter evenings now that the clocks have gone forward.
Yeah.
Perhaps for the last time in Spain. We don't know, because I know the EU has been talking about abolishing daylight savings for. They, of course, voted on it in 2019 and decided that, yes, it will be done. I think it was supposed to happen last year, but, with everything that's going on has been delayed. So whether they do it this year, next year, a few years' time, I guess we wait to find out.
I think 2021 was going to be the year where people had to decide whether to keep the winter time or move permanently to summertime. I think that was the idea. I'm not exactly 100% sure what the proposal was, but there were a lot of countries that wanted to have that longer afternoon light rather than the early morning light. Here in Spain, I think it's a bit of a problem because Spain is already on the wrong time zone. We should be on GMT, the same time as Portugal and the Canary Islands, but we are not. That is why the sun is late to come up in the morning and it is very late to go down. But if we did go onto the proper time slot or time zone, I don't know. I think then we should decide, but I wouldn't like Johnny to have darkness until 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm a morning guy, I like to get up in the morning, and I like to get up in the morning and have sun. And if we didn't have sun until 10 o'clock in the morning, that for me would be a problem.
Yeah, I think the reasons that you're saying there are some of the reasons that some of the northern countries, particularly the Scandinavian countries, they don't want to go on permanent summertime because it would disrupt sleeping patterns, and there would be very dark mornings in Scandinavia, which already gets very dark as it is in the evening. So for that to be the case in the morning,
yeah. Well, I remember when the debate was. I mean, there hasn't really been a debate this year because that's sort of been put on the back burner. But I remember when there was a debate. Of course, all of the typical sectors were the ones calling for that longer afternoon. The tourist sector down there on the Costa Blanca and the Costa del Sol. They wanted to have those very late afternoon sunsets or evening sunsets or night sunsets, basically. All year round, because that's their business. When you're on holidays, you get up late and you go to bed a little bit later. So that that was that was a big push. But
yeah, and now you've got the added complication of Brexit. I think the UK is not thinking about abolishing daylight savings. So twice a year, you got the time change. You'd have some of the EU on the same time zone as the UK, some of it not. Yeah. And then, of course, you've got the situation of Ireland. If Ireland decides to abolish daylight savings, then you've got half of the island on one time zone and half on another, a bit like is the case on the peninsula with Spain and Portugal.
Yeah, I mean, in Australia, there's 3 time zones. So, I mean, it can be done. It doesn't make sense in a place like Ireland, of course, between the north and the south because there's no geographical difference. But it doesn't really make sense in Spain, I suppose, if you live in a place like Galicia and you cross the border into Portugal and you are on a different time zone. It doesn't make sense, but it's the way it is. It's the way Spain rolls. I think I don't know whether it's a rumor, but I think it's fairly much established now that it was Franco back in the day that put Spain on German time, and it's never gone back.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well.
So, I mean, he's not around to defend himself, but I think that was the reason. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so as well. Yeah.
And of course, Brexit. Brexit has also thrown a spanner in the works. I don't know whether this is, it's affecting the daylight savings time, but of course, when you have one of your big partners leave, it is disruptive to everybody.
Yeah, from from a time zone perspective, I know from my personal work situation, we have calls with the UK quite a few times, and they're set at 1 GMT. So at 2 p.m. Spanish time, that works quite well for me. I have an early lunch at 1:30, can come back online.
Yeah.
But yeah, if the UK and Spain suddenly go on the same time zone, someone plans a meeting at 1 o'clock. Yeah. Then have to lunch a bit later or lunch earlier.
Well, yeah, or you adapt your lunchtime. That's right. That's it.
Yeah, well, that's what you got to do. Yeah,
have a midday lunch. Yeah. Well, yeah, but like I said, I don't know whether it's going to happen. Whether it's been, like I said, it's been put on the back burner. I think from what I've read, and another thing that takes a long time to get done. Because to get 27 countries to agree on something, I think it's not easy. No, but anyway.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And Brexit, we'll keep on that topic because there's been talk this week about people being deported from Spain. I don't know exactly what's going on, but that was picked up by the tabloid press in the UK this week.
Yep. So you got to be careful how you read into it. So essentially what happens is the UK government has really been pushing their Brexit transition advertising to the point where actually a billboard has popped up in my neighborhood and I walked past it in the street. Yeah, I was very surprised myself to see it, but indeed there is a billboard with the UK government saying be sure to register as a resident. So why they picked my neighborhood, I don't know. But yeah, there you go. In any case,
they probably saw that you were registered there, Johnny, in that neighbourhood, and they decided to put it up just to grab your attention.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I'm already registered, so I'm good. But yeah, I'm not sure if there's any other Brits living in this particular neighbourhood of Madrid.
Don't know.
But yeah, anyway, so back to what we were saying. So essentially, the whole push behind this advertising campaign is that now at the end of March, the first 90-day period elapses for British people in Spain who are not registered as a resident. So if you're not registered as a resident and you don't intend to become one, then to avoid overstaying and being deported or fined, this is all the stories that are coming up of UK citizens who've been under the radar in Spain for whatever reason. They haven't registered as a resident, and now because they don't want to get their paperwork in order, or they may have been rejected in their application, they essentially have to leave to avoid those penalties from overstaying in the Schengen area.
That's right, because now there are conditions involved. That's right. Whereas before, you could just come over here in your car or your camper van, or hop on a flight and stay as long as you want. And now these restrictions are in place, and I suppose that potentially there's thousands of people that are not adhering to the rules. Hence the headlines, but don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Well, as I was reading an article, a prominent figure who campaigns for British citizens' rights in Spain, she mentioned in the article, she was quoted saying she thinks a lot of people have not taken the threat as seriously as maybe they should have done. They haven't maybe given this the attention it needs, and now they're being caught out. So some people, unfortunately, haven't got it together in time, got their residency applications in order, and now these penalties coming in.
Well, the rumours were, I mean, some of the press, the stories that I read were that the Spanish government was rounding people up, like World War II style, rounding them up and sticking them on a plane and deporting them from the country. I don't know whether that's true or not, to be honest. I haven't heard any first-hand events.
Yeah, so actually, the article, this is the one that you sent me. What we just discussed in that article is actually two different things. But if you're not careful, you can read into it as the same thing. But actually, the article you sent me was a case where some British citizens had travelled back to Alicante with their papers from the Foreigners Office saying, can you come and pick up your residency card? And it's official Spanish government documentation. But in the airport, they were refused entry because they specifically didn't have the new TA card. And even though, according to the Spanish authorities and the British authorities, that they would be allowed back in with that, ultimately, the immigration officers refused them entry. And I think, the British embassy is taking it up with the Spanish authorities because they did agree that people who are in the ongoing residency application and have those documents should be allowed back in. So, they're really hoping this is a one-off case.
Yeah, well, again, it's a bit of an inconvenience if you do come down with what you think are the correct papers and then you get sent back to Manchester or Liverpool or wherever it was that you came from. I think it was Manchester that they mentioned in the text. But, of course, that's what creates the headlines and that's what creates the sensation, you know?
Well, that's it. And then one of the passengers' wives, she was quoted in the paper saying, as much as they tell you that your documentation will be fine, be prepared for anything. And I know, it's a horrible feeling when you have that. I remember when I was in France, the French administration is quite, there's a lot of hurdles to jump over, and I really felt that many times in France. So I know exactly what that person was feeling.
Yeah, that's it. And I suppose that has been the bureaucratic nightmare for a few people as well, that it hasn't been easy to get that TIE card, or a lot of people have just decided to put it off for whatever reason, or they didn't get in before that deadline or whatever. And now, of course, to live in Spain, you have to adhere to the criteria of having income, and if you're working, you have to, it's become complicated, of course.
Yeah, for the most part. So people who work, obviously, it's very straightforward. In my case, obviously, I work, so quite straightforward. When you're maybe retired or you're an autonomo, then it becomes a bit more difficult. In the case of people who arrived before the end of last year, then it's a guarantee. Your right to remain in Spain is protected. Yeah. You won't need a visa. If you're looking for employment, you have the same rights as Spanish nationals. Yeah. But for someone new arriving this year, then they have to go through that third country immigration process, the standard immigration rules. Yeah.
But even if you are working, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you work in the European Union as a non-European citizen, you're technically supposed to prove that you're not taking the job of a Spaniard or a European. Do you know what I mean? Before, you didn't have that drama because you could come over here and work as a British citizen, but now you go into a completely different pool where you are competing with people outside the European Union. So a company would have to justify from now on, or maybe even when you did it, Johnny, that there's a reason to hire you and not somebody from the EU first,
Yeah, so that's the case with new people coming. So anyone who is arriving in Spain now, that will be the case. Yeah. But as part of the withdrawal agreement that was agreed between the UK and the EU, it essentially protects the rights of citizens who arrived before the Brexit deadline. So people like myself, many others, we moved over in the good faith that we'd continue to enjoy many of those benefits whilst we were EU citizens. So in a sense, we do have a lot of those rights protected: the right to continue working in Spain, for example, the right to access public health care. But like you say, if I was to tomorrow move to Amsterdam or some other EU country, then it would be start from scratch. And what you say, it definitely would apply.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, well, my only suggestion would be that if you are walking around and you see the police come up, Johnny, just pull out your camera and say that you're a tourist, and away you go. Just say that you're from Ireland or somewhere, and there's no problem.
Yeah, for those who are not registered as a resident, tips from Stu to stay safe in Spain and not get into trouble.
Well, that's it, yeah. But it has, as we said, it has thrown a spanner in the works, unfortunately. Yeah. All right, good. What else is on the agenda, Johnny?
Yeah, so we got the 4-day work week. I know you discussed this in one of your episodes a few weeks back, but it caught my attention again this week when famous British entrepreneur James Caan from the series Dragon's Den, people may know him. He raised it on LinkedIn this week and asked people what they thought about it. So, I think this is a good debate to have because, you come from a generation where traditionally, it's like the 5-day, 40-hour work week all the time in the office. And I come from a generation where we came into that, but now there's more flexible solutions such as teleworking, remote working, and now working from home, and now this proposal coming in. So it'd be good to get both sides of that discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I haven't worked traditionally for a long time. I've never worked a 9 to 5 job. You know, I've always been self-employed here at least. And although you try to keep to a 9 to 5 timetable because of other people that you know, I work 7 days a week sometimes, Johnny. You know, I never switch off. So a 4-day working week's not going to affect me. But is it going to affect people, you know, that are coming into the workforce now? Maybe somebody like yourself, it's more easy to adapt. It could be, I don't know, because you are used to working from home, maybe more intensive working on a computer. Maybe it is a new thing that people need to talk about. I don't know. The traditional ways, maybe time to change. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of points to consider. So this obviously it comes from political party Mas País.
Yeah.
And actually, they've rolled out the trial period. Not sure when exactly they're starting it, but it's going to run for a year with about 200 companies, and that's 6,000 employees that are taking part. And it's only in specific sectors. So one of the arguments against it, or rather from a balanced argument from an economics professor, I think his name is Manuel Hidalgo. He's an applied economics professor at the University of Navarra, if I'm not mistaken, but he says this could be really good, but in sectors that have that flexibility where there's high human capital in the company or the product is flexible. So the likes of headhunting, telemarketing, etc. I know, particularly in my sector, it might be a bit more difficult, particularly if you think, you know, you've got to work with people who are elsewhere in the EU or elsewhere in Europe, other countries. And if you're only working 4 days a week and they're working 5, already, you know, Spain's got a lot of public holidays. So to add in, 4-day work week. Yeah.
Well, those are, I mean, again, those are things that need to be taken into consideration, of course, and the productivity needs to come into consideration. Again, we have to look at who's putting this idea forward. It's a very small minority party that originally was, I think it was Podemos, and then it split. So there's some ideology behind it there as well. I don't know. Do they have the business lobbies on board? Do they have, you know, the Cámara de Comercio, as they call it here? Are they on board? What's going to happen? I mean, even something that you mentioned there, Johnny, when it comes to remote working or working from home, one of the big, I'm speaking for the sake of speaking here, but one of the big things about real estate in any capital city is that office space and how much companies are paying to have people working there, right? So once you start to break that, and there's going to be all of these empty offices around the place, somebody's not going to be happy. Do you know what I mean? So
for sure, yeah.
So if people start working from home, people start working less hours per week, and there's going to be empty office space where companies are paying. Not only companies are paying for rent, but also companies are depending on that rent coming in. That's going to be a huge change, and something's going to have to break there, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think commercial real estate in Spain, as much as, you know, private real estate, it's big business. So
everywhere. I mean, you know.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are things that also have to, I mean, it's one thing to put a theory on the table, but another thing is to think about all the subsequent problems or things that could pop up as a result, you know.
It will help people to spend more free time, to look after their family, to look after the house. And a couple of the companies that have done it, that are not in this trial, there are a couple, have said that they've increased productivity and they've reported less absent days in the office. So it could be good as well.
I mean, I'm sure there could be potential benefits, but again, you have to change a lot of people's mentality with regard to that. And I think one of the ideas, if I remember correctly from reading about it, was that, you know, people have more time to spend money and people have more time to, you know, to get out and about and enjoy life, and it's a potential win-win. But again, are we in this situation in a country like Spain where it's possible to make that change? Remember, Spain is a country that has a lot of unemployed people. Is it going to fix that problem in any way? Are more jobs going to be created if you're job sharing? I mean, I don't know. Are people going to accept less money if they work 32 hours a week? Again,
That's it, yeah. All these good points, valid points of debate. I know
Yeah.
Mass Spice, they say, they want you to work less. Their proposal is to work less time for the same wage. Sounds brilliant. I would definitely be for that. But, is it a utopia? Like, can it be made real? Is
Well, yeah.
another question, yeah.
Well, again, you mentioned before about companies that are very, that have a lot of workers working for them. Maybe it is possible, but if you take it down to the lower end of the business spectrum, the bakeries, businesses like that, are they going to be able to do it? I don't know.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have to wait and see. But maybe to wrap this topic up, we've got... I remember there was one Spanish politician, I think he was from the PP, but he said in times like this, we need to work more, not less. So,
well, that's always been the philosophy, that when there's a recession or problems with the economy, you need to work harder. But again, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the pilot program.
We will indeed,
all right.
yeah.
Good. What's last on the agenda there, Johnny?
So last of all, back to good old football.
Football again?
Yeah, football again. Well, I mean, it is pretty big in this country, Stu, and I think particularly when it comes to the national team. So obviously the national team, they've had qualifiers over the past week for the World Cup.
Yeah.
So they played Greece and drew 1-1, played Georgia and won 2-1. That game was played with fans, actually, in Georgia. And then last night beat Kosovo 3-1 in Granada, I think.
Well, that's right. They played a country called Kosovo, a country that Spain doesn't recognise as a country, ironically.
Right,
So
right. I read into the reasons behind that, and it's all related to Catalonia and the Basque Country, essentially.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I did notice yesterday, watching a bit of the game, that when they had the score, how they have the score at the top of the screen, it had Spain in capital letters, and then in small letters it had KOV. So I don't know whether that was a reference there as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. Yeah, they had Kosovo in small letters. Perhaps something to do with it, yeah.
I don't know. But what you're saying, that Spain is underperforming, Johnny, at a national level, is that
Well, what I think stands out for me, so there's a documentary on Netflix that goes through all the teams that have won the World Cup and through those episodes. And of course, there's one on Spain. And it talks about how there's always big expectations of the national team in the past. When they've not lived up to those expectations, it's been frustrating for everyone.
Yeah.
And of course, 2010, 2012, you had the golden years of Vicente del Bosque when they won the World Cup and then the Euro Cup. But yeah, I think Spain, from what I've seen, they've got a couple of promising young players on the team, the likes of Ferran Torres and Dani Olmo. But I think there's a lack of veteran presence. So you still got Sergio Ramos and you've got Jordi Alba, Busquets that are still around, but it's nothing like the team from the golden years. Kind of reminds me of maybe the rebuilding phase that the US basketball team went through after they won that gold medal.
Yeah, well, I suppose Spain, as you said, had its golden years. They won, 3 major championships back there. They had a very, very, very good team. And of course, everybody expects a high performance after that. I mean, look at England, when you won the World Cup, what was it, in '66? And, trying to win it again, there's a lot of frustration for the fans, Johnny, and
that's it,
I remember that England's had good teams over the years. I don't want to talk too much about football, but I remember there was high expectations when people like Gascoigne were playing, and Lineker and all of these great players back in the a few years ago, and it's just not easy to win these tournaments, and Spain is optimistic that they can do it again, but at the moment it's not easy.
Yeah, I think there's several factors in play. I think one definitely comes down to the chemistry and getting everyone to play together. Because if you compare, the likes of an England or Spain to a team like France, the caliber of players is very similar. They're all very good players. But what makes France stand out is that they really play well together. Whereas the likes of England and Spain, it's not the same chemistry between the players, I think.
Yeah, Germany has that chemistry as well. It seems, that they seem to play very well together. When in the big, well, even having said that, they've been heavily defeated in recent times. But
by North Macedonia yesterday, I believe as well.
But they are. It is a team that wins, tournament after tournament, But who knows whether Spain can recapture that the glory days of 2008, 2010, 2012. Time will tell. All right, Johnny, we'll wrap it up. I have to move on, but good speaking to you again today, and we'll be in contact for next week.
Yep, another great conversation. I'll speak to you next week, Stu.
All right, Johnny, have a good one. See you later.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So there we go. That was the weekly review with Johnny. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.